So, welcome back, everybody. We look forward today concluding the 44th chapter. Bezras Hashem Yisborich. Yes, there was quite a few classes on this very chapter. A bit lengthy, but also it's concepts which take more time to explain, even in comparison to other chapters of our Holy Tanya. To see all the previous classes on this very chapter, including all the previous classes from the very beginning of Tanya, I naturally note this for the newcomers. It's literally a click away on the tanyaonline.com website. As I mentioned many times, easy to follow, text in a separate scroll bar, easy access to the previous classes, again, of this very chapter and from the very beginning of Tanya. I did mention as well there was a few subjects in this very chapter which has been discussed in a little more length and elaboration on the 16th chapter, which again, easy to find, and as well in the 39th chapter in Tanya. And we will conclude today, we're holding Kizeh Ki Yesh Risrein Umayla L'Bchinas Ava Kirish Be'esh. So Alter Rebbe discussed in the last class, it had been spoken about in the message of the Alter Rebbe up till now, that despite the avos, this love, these two expressions of love, of ava, of Hashem being Mekir Chayenu, Nafshenu Mekir Chayenu, and Hashem being the Avinu Ha'amiti, which literally meaning in clear translation, that Hashem being the source of our life stream, Nafshenu, our soul. And again, as Alter Rebbe so beautifully put it, what is the connection of, or how does a Yid, or how does any human being look at the connection of the human being and their own soul, is something not only this is the way they're alive, but even consciously they aspire. There should be that perfect flow between their soul and their body. So too a Yid appreciates HaKadosh Baruch Hu on that same manner, that Hashem is Nafshenu, our soul, Mekir Chayenu, the source of our life. The Rebbe puts it in again in the in also in the perspective of a Yid doing something about it, or there's a natural inclination of the Yid to get up at night to learn Torah till the morning, because he knows Hashem put his whole nefesh into Torah. Aneichi ana nafshik sabes Yehavas. Again, as we spoke about, Hashem said, I took my whole core essence, I put it into Torah. And the Yid feels and knows and appreciates HaKadosh Baruch Hu as his soul, and therefore he learns Torah till the morning, and so on. And then that other ava, that love, which comes as a result of Hashem being Avinu Ha'amiti, to Hashem because he is the father figure, true father figure, and so on. Again, as explained in detail, this is the message pretty much. The Alter Rebbe is notifying us in this very chapter of these two concepts, which we know about in general, but in detail and in articulation in this very chapter. So these two avos, these two expressions of love, as a result of these two dynamics, these two ideas, these two phenomena of Hashem being Mekir Chayenu and Avinu Ha'amiti, the source of our life, and our true Father, arouses in the heart in different ways. The message in the last week's class is that there is something before the very last line, which the last 2-3 lines which we learned, is to the contrary. Hashem is saying, the Alter Rebbe is saying that this comes and this love is associated with the Avarabba. That really, the highest level of Ava, the deepest level of Ava, of love, which comes directly from Atzilus. Yeah, we're using terms. We're going to keep it brief because this is what we took the time last week to explain. Something emanating from Atzilus as opposed to something associated Bria, Yitzira, and so on, which in turn elevates the Torah mitzvahs to that exact level. Again, got to go back to click away to see these concepts in detail. But the Alter Rebbe begins, this is associated with Ava Rabba, or these two Avas are really included also from the Avarabba, meaning they could express themselves in an Avarabba type of expression, type of experience, in an Avarabba type of expression, Avarabba type of experience, which this is extremely deep. This is about Ava B'Tanugim, a love not only I'm driven to something, but I'm in the experience of the delight, the pleasure, and so on, as we as well took the time in Perek Tes, in the 9th chapter, where the Alter Rebbe differentiates between the two and points out how the Ava B'Tanugim is a way farther, deeper type of love, much more than the Ava Rabba, much more the Ava Kirish Be'esh, when the Ava is driven by his beinunus, by a meditation, by a sense of pondering on something which establishes a fiery love in my heart, as I'm driven to a lakus, to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, as opposed to Ava B'Tanugim, is far greater, far deeper, because then I'm not driven to it, I'm kind of basking in the pleasure of it. Again, you can see it also, it's a click away, which is about, I think, we'd say the second to the last class in Perek Tes, but you can see it in the text where he points out the difference. And again, within the text, you can read the text on its own, but if you want to follow the class there, just see the corresponding message or the corresponding class to the text, which speaks about the difference between Ava Rabba and Ava B'Tanugim. Ava B'Tanugim is such a deeper love, and therefore the Alter Rebbe says the Ava B'Tanugim has the ability to transform the Yetzer Hara, to become mamash like a Yetzer Tov. I say mamash, that's a lashon of the Alter Rebbe, Yetzer Tov. Mamash, again, you can see the great virtue of Ava Rabba over Avas Eilam. The Ava Rabba itself, that experience, how does a person able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on this level, or have that type of love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Ava B'Tanugim? So this is the Alter Rebbe speaks about in this very chapter, which also you can, to click away, the Alter Rebbe, in 43rd chapter, it says this comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a gift. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that the Yid is perfect, if you will, he says clearly, Shalim B'Yira. He's complete in Yira Shamayim, in his learning Torah, he's doing mitzvahs, scrupulous in action, speech, and thought. Hashem bestows, it's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says, I'm connecting to you to a very deep and intimate place within myself, or a deep and intimate connection with myself in the most deepest part of me, which is Atzilus. Again, we said that naturally is higher than Atzilus, but generally the Adam HaElyon, the supreme Adam, is Atzilus, and Hashem says that I'm connecting you to the most deepest part of myself, and therefore this experience, any experience associated with, comes from or associated with Atzilus, is extremely profound, extremely deep. And this is again not something someone can climb to. It's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to someone who's Shalom B'Yira, who's complete in Yira Shamayim. Again, you can see it pretty much in the center, in the middle of chapter 43. The Alter Rebbe concluded last week and said, it doesn't mean because you reached Ava Rabba that the Avas Eilam becomes irrelevant anymore. Remember, just for example, as an example, it says when Mashiach will come, we will always mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus of Egypt, and commentaries ask, why? Why are we mentioning the Exodus of Egypt when the miracles and wonders which are going to take place, transpire, and Mashiach is going to come, is going to be way greater. Why even mention Yetzias Mitzrayim? Why don't you mention the Exodus of Egypt? And there's so many answers given in it. But the question, or just to appreciate the question, the famous expression, the Gemara, Shaga B'Tira Mayahani. Try to light a candle when it's very dark, in a dark place. Oh, the candle does so much. You know where you're going, you know what to find. You can appreciate this which is around you. Light a candle when it's bright light, especially b'tiara, in the sunlight. A beautiful sunny day, light a candle, it does nothing. It doesn't contribute to anything. It doesn't make it lighter. It's literally no difference. Try it, you see, it's nothing. It doesn't make anything your surrounding even a bit lighter. It says, for that matter, that the candle itself, it's not for now, but the candle itself, the actual flame looks even a bit darker. The flame itself has a certain blackness to it. You can try it as well. But without that detail, it just doesn't help anything. Why would you want to light? You see someone's looking for something in broad daylight and he says, let me bring a candle to make it easier for me. It's just not true. Because the overwhelming light of the sun makes the little flame totally irrelevant. And the same thing, apparently, when we mention Yitzis Mitzrayim in the time of Golus, we appreciate it, we're excited about it, we celebrate it. That's the point of mentioning Yitzis Mitzrayim, the Exodus of Egypt, every day, and how much more so in the time of Pesach, the night of the Seder, that is what we celebrate. And so the wonders and miracles which Hashem performed for Am Yisrael, which got us to this point. When Mashiach will come, what does the pasuk say? That there's going to be such great wonders, which in comparison to the wonders, in other words, the wonders of Yitzis Mitzrayim will fall pale to the wonders of L'aseh Lavi. And not only that, it'll be niflois, as one of the explanations of this is, that it'll be niflois, the wonders will be even wondrous, so to say, in comparison to the wonders and the miracles. Not only the experience itself, but in comparison to the wonders and miracles, this will be a total different experience. So Mashiach is going to come. What does the Mishnah say? That even Lavi L'meisa Mashiach, the Maskirin Mitzis Mitzrayim, one says Balelis, when it's dark at night. Another one says Lavi L'meisa Mashiach, the Mashiach, when the Mashiach will come, will still mention the Exodus of Egypt. And the question is, Shraga B'tira Mayani, what did you gain? What is it? It's like lighting a candle in broad daylight. And what did we give the answer? We gave the answers, again, there's so many answers are given. Because that's when Geula, the dynamic of Geula began. The whole phenomenon of Geula, redemption began. That was the opening when Hashem decided that His people are going to be a redeemed people, and it comes to total fruition. Mashiach will come. And again, in a much grander manner. Understandably, this is what Mimeisa Mashiach are all about. But there's a message, Chassidus said, there's a message, something very special about that experience, and Hashem appreciates it so much to the extent that He says, never forget that. And I want you to always mention it and remind yourself and speak about it, and remind it in the best of time, because this is something which continues to touch a certain point, so to say, within Hashem, that Hashem appreciates so much, and Hashem says, don't ever cancel that, don't ever know that. And what is it? So again, I'm going to go into it now. We're learning Tanya now. We're learning this subject, and we're going to try to finish the Pedic today. But just it says the difference of Yitzis Mitzrayim and Negula Asida, the future redemption. Is the difference again. We're going to cut short right now to explain this in detail, but it's the difference of Iskafia and Ishapcha, which is two types of services. One, a Yid subdues himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, submits himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One is about transformation. He's completely transmuted, completely transformed, meaning to say he's perfectly on the same page as HaKadosh Baruch Hu in action, thought, speech, in every area, in his Avodas Hashem, in every area of his 24 hours better. He's never challenged. He's just in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. No challenges. He, in every expression of his davening, learning Torah, his midas, his machshava, dibur, ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action are completely and perfectly aligned with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That doesn't mean he's transformed. Everything about him is transformed, like based on what the Mishnah says, "V'ahavtas Hashem l'kecha b'chol levavcha," and not only the Yetzer Hara, Taiv should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the Chiddush? Obviously, and Nefesh Elikis loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the real novelty and the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to this world, he should transform his Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara not only should allow the Yetzer Taiv, the godly soul, the Nefesh Elikis, in terms of the Alter Rebbe, the Nefesh Elikis, to be able to execute its connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it itself should be part of that whole experience. Wow, that's tremendous. That is extraordinary. As we can all appreciate, this is something which is, find me the person, I'd like to meet him. Well, that would be default when Mashiach will come, because it's Ruach HaTumah v'Menorah. Hashem is going to completely obliterate the impure forces of Eilam Hazeh, so we're all going to be perfectly in line with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Ava, loving that love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, drive to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a passionate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because there's nothing else other than God, godliness, and so on and so forth. As opposed to when you say the Avodah V'Skafia, the Avodah V'Skafia is, you say submission. I'm subduing myself. Why am I subduing myself? If I'm a Yid and I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu one way or another, why do I need to subdue me? Why do I have to do iskafi? Why do I have to bend myself for God? The answer is because there is my animal soul, my Yetzer Hara, is still very potent in its presentation, its desires, lusts, covets, cravings, proclivities, and so on and so forth. As we all very much are well aware, it comes in the way, and we have to say no. You want to sleep? No, we're going to go to a shir. You want to sleep? No, we're going to go daven. You want to get me involved in this and that? No, I'm going to go daven mincha. You want to get me involved in this and that? I don't have to daven. I have to go to a shir. But it's always a challenge. Why is it a challenge? Because there's great strength. In other words, my nefesh habahamis, my animal soul, or my Yetzer Hara, any way you want to call it. The way in Chassidus it says differences between these two terminologies, but certainly not for now. It's still strong, it's still potent with his message, which is with his presentation. And I have to subdue that. So on the surface, one was going to say, what is the perfect image? Obviously, it's Hapcha. Complete transformation. My Yetzer Hara is on par with the whole program. It loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu just like my Nefesh Elikis, my God, my godly soul loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like the Alter Rebbe writes in that very chapter 9, Kimei Yetzer Tev Mamash, the Yetzer Hara becomes Yetzer Tev. That's wonderful. But Hashem says, I will never forget. And it will never be just brought under the carpet, if you will. This time that you struggled, and you had these taivas, these temptations, not to follow my demands, not to follow my commands, and these temptations to violate, that's an asay taiv, to keep you laid back, not to do everything what I wanted to, you wanted the Yid to do, and you compelled yourself, and you said to the Yetzer Hara, looked the Yetzer Hara in your face and said, no, I'm going to go to this year, I'm going to be careful to come on time to Minyan, I'm going to daven, and I'm going to turn off everything before I daven and when I daven, and I'm going to be involved despite the challenge. And the same thing when it comes to leisesa, the temptation is to do things which are not in line with Hashem wants, to speak things which are not in line with Hashem wants, to think this what Hashem wants, not in line with Hashem wants, not to look where we're not supposed to, and so on. When there's a challenge, and we overcome that challenge, it's very dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's extremely special to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore Hashem says, and you see, when it comes to Mashiach, it's going to come, and we're going to reach the peak. We're going to reach the highest level in our dveikus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the highest level in our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to become totally one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I love a true dveikus, a true even avarabba, which is going to be default when Mashiach comes. Hashem says, always remember Yitzias Mitzrayim, the time when your connection with me was in a way when there was a challenge. Again, we're not going to go into it why Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus of Egypt, is associated with that Avodah V'iskafia. It's explained many times. Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe explains itself in 31st chapter in Tanya. And because of my deep appreciation to the time that you were struggling, the time you had challenges and you said no, you make sure that when the time when Mashiach is going to come, and that whole Avodah will be completely irrelevant, because the Yetzer Hara is going to be completely transformed. Hashem is going to eradicate any impurity of this world. Even then, I want you to mention it because it's so special. It always remains special that you overcame challenges, that when it wasn't so easy to serve me, and you made that choice to serve me. Why am I saying this? Because you find this, there's a similarity. Again, it's not the same concept, it's not the same idea. It is just a certain similarity. On one hand, Alter Rebbe says here that these avas could come in a way of an expression of avarabba, a total an experience of love which is associated with Ilam Atzilus, which is literally basking in the experience, basking in the pleasure and the delight of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The holy, you're there already. Again, B'ta'ava b'tanugi means you're in the experience, you're in the pleasure, you're not driven to something. And then the Alter Rebbe comes back and says, which that would tell you that at this point, Avas Eilam is not that important. The terminology Avas Eilam, again, explained many times in this very chapter. You'd seen it in the previous classes. But comes the Alter Rebbe back and says, don't cancel it completely. Don't annul this completely. Don't take it off the table completely, because from a certain perspective and point of view, there's something virtuous of the Avas Olam, when you're driven to something, you have a fiery love to something, and you're passionate about getting there. And because you have a passion about getting there, that passion has an advantage even more than when you're there and basking in the experience and the delight. Why so? Because this Olam, there's the Mayim Rabim, as we spoke last week, again to try to get the flow into this end of the chapter, that there's the Mayim Rabim, there's those tumultuous waters, disturbances and challenges which exist in Olam Hazeh, and you need a fire, you need a burning fire to overcome those challenges. And it's not enough that you find that, again, if you're dealing with the neshama divested of body or divested of Olam Hazeh, then you say, what is the archetype of Ava and connection and Dveikus HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Certainly it's the Ava Rabbo, directly with that, connected to Atzilus, Ava B'Tanugim. Again, you're there, you're in the experience, certainly. And then Ava Salem is not that relevant because you're already there. But because we find ourselves in a world and there's so many disturbances, and the Lashon of Shlomo Melech and Shir Hashem, these are the Mayim Rabim, the many waves, the many rivers which are come and disturb and challenge our Avodas Hashem, and just like water, in order to extinguish water, or in order to get rid of, so to say, water, you have to put up a big fire. Even though it works the other way around, water could extinguish and does extinguish fire, but sometimes the fire is so great that the fire would dry up the water. Would calm the water or dry up the water totally. And because Shlomo Melech says this Avodas Hashem in Olam Hazeh, this physical world, is the disturbances are in a way of Mayim Rabim, great waters, tumultuous waters, which disturb the Yid in his Avodas Hashem. So it's not enough that the Yid experiences Ava Rabba, even though that's the climactic state of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nonetheless, the ideal state of the and climactic state of the Dveikus of Yid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nonetheless, the Alter Rebbe says that there's something very special, that you keep the fire on, you keep the passion on, in order that these Mayim Rabim, these great stormy, tumultuous waters, which we all are very well aware of, should not be able to extinguish the Ava, the drive of Yid to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And to the contrary, that passion, that drive, that fire, which is again the whole fire, that when you're driven to something, then the passion is so much greater, and the passion is so much more in function, much more than when you're there and basking in the delight, because there it's overtaken. The Lashon of the Alter Rebbe there, it's more like Kamayim, Ava Kamayim, which has its great advantage. Not only has its great advantage, it's way greater and way higher and way deeper than the Ava Kiddush B'Yesh. But nonetheless, because we're dealing with another type of wave, another type of stormy disturbances, again in the Lashon of Shlomo Melech, these are the Mayim Rabim, therefore there's an advantage of the Avas Olam, because that keeps the fire burning and very, very strong. Lashon of the Alter Rebbe is Meduda Sage, like a bonfire, which is flames shooting up to heaven, which again, this is the experience in the Yid's heart, which has the ability to at least calm those waters, that those waters should not disturb as much. And here the Alter Rebbe continues, Ki yesh risun amaylu b'chinas Ava Kiddush B'Yesh v'shalavis azo abo mizbeinus v'duz v'gdulas v'das v'gdul sim so baruch hu, because there's an advantage in this love, which is a love is expressed as a fiery love and an intense flame, which is ultimately the intense passion which comes from the pondering and the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, based on my appreciation, understanding, and knowledge, again, in the greatness of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be He, even when these two loves, again, articulated in this chapter, which is again the message of this chapter, these two loves of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being Mikir Chayenu and Avinu Amiti, when they come, when they're associated with Avarava, but then the passion is gone, the fire is gone, maybe a deeper level in the connection, but nonetheless the fire is gone because you're already there, you're not driven to something, you're already in the experience. And there's advantage when there is the Rish B'Yesh over when these two loves are already expressed in a manner when there is no fire, there is no intense passion. Like the advantage of gold over silver. Even though silver, which has the in the Lashon of Tanakh, starting from Chumash Bereishis, nichsif nichsafte lebeis avicha, the idea of the Yid's yearning to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the appreciation of being part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to Zav, gold. There is, again, if you look at the gold, you look at the silver, it is something just because, even though they seem to weigh the same, and maybe it's just a matter of a different color, but everybody can appreciate there's intrinsic value of gold over silver, even though in this case, kesef is about nichsef, nichsafta lebeis avicha, about that oneness, about that pine of a yid to the beis avicha, translated in Pnimius, that are referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there's something very special of Zav, gold. Again, even though it could have the same weight of the kesef and so on, but nonetheless, everybody appreciates, and this is the way it is conventionally accepted, about that great advantage of Zav over kesef, gold over silver, again, because of its special value. And in this case also, there's great love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way it's not in a way of nichsif nichsafti lebeis avicha, but rather with the shalheves azo, with that intense flame and intense love, the intensity of the love and the intensity of the passion has that advantage again because it calms these stormy and tumultuous waters, illustrated by Shlomo Melech in Shir Hashirim, referring to the disturbances and the challenges that he's had as an Elam Hazeh, which is Bar Lukama, like explained later. And now later is in Perek Nun in the 50th chapter, where again he used the same term of Kesef and Zahav, kind of a similar message, and which is naturally applicable over here. And he says more so. That's one advantage. Even though, again, by definition, this Ava Kirish Be'esh is a step or much lower in the experience than the Ava B'Tanugim. This is associated with Elam Habriya, and this is associated with Elam Atzilus, which the difference is vast, as we can all appreciate. And again, we spoke about this so much, especially in the 43rd chapter, the 9th chapter, and the 43rd chapter, which is again a click away, which you can see that the difference is great, and also we can appreciate in this which we're driven to. When we're driven to something, there's an enormous passion, there's a fiery passion. When the person's there and has that experience already, and it's just a matter of a certain pleasure takes over the entire person, that it's not like he is separate and being then this which he's driven to and being driven and passionate about and driven to. No, him and the experience become completely one. He is the experience, because the experience completely filters through his whole system, through his whole being. And again, that itself tells us, just from this example, in our physical delights and pleasures of Elam Hazeh, this physical world, again, at least as a concept, conceptually speaking, we can appreciate the difference is vast. And the same thing, especially we know that this comes from Atzilus, Leigur Chara. Again, the Alter Rebbe uses these terminologies in the third chapter, in the 43rd chapter. It's coming directly from Atzilus, Letamam Kitzut Pirud. It's all about the enormous spirit of oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why it's a gift. A person can't reach it on his own. The difference is great, but nonetheless, there's an advantage of this type of love, Kirish Be'esh. And then he says a second reason. This is also the entire purpose of man, and the objective and goal of man's creation, Lamandas is Kved Hashem, that he should know the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Yikar Tiferes Gulase, and the endearment of the glory and the glory of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ishish Kifish Yuchel says, each one according to his capacity, intellectual capacity, like it says in the Rai Mehemna, which is again a component of Zayar, Pashas Bay, Begin Dishtamedon, like that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, that one should be able to know and appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it's known, and this is the conclusion of chapter 44. In other words, there's a few reasons which are brought. Why did Hashem create the world? So the ultimate reason is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a Dira B'Tachtenim, a dwelling place in this very physical world. And if it was only, as the Chassidus explains in so many different places, and Alter Rebbe alludes to this in the 36th and 37th chapter, that every reason you're going to give for creation, it won't satisfy what the Hashem needed to create this very physical world. Even here, begin that in order to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the supreme beings and celestial beings of know HaKadosh Baruch Hu much more than us, as the neshama is invested in Elam Hazeh, in a physical body, which again limits that ability to appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then we're in a very physical world with different presentations. and as such challenged one way or another, we don't have the ability, we don't have that capacity, then these beings on high, the neshamas, the souls divested of body, or these malachim. So if it was that, if it was the only reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have stopped his creation in the supreme worlds with these malachim, these souls, and these angels reside. Why did he create this very physical world? And therefore, in the end of the day, we must say the whole purpose of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything, and ultimately this world, because he wanted a dwelling place in Tachteinim, in an inferior world, again, is explained and elaborated in the 36th, 37th chapter, and 37th chapter. That it's about subliminating, elevating this very physical world, and that's the whole purpose of creation. And therefore, he needed to create an Eilam Hazeh Tacht in this very physical world, and it wouldn't be enough, sufficient for this plan to stop in Eilam Atzilus and Eilam Bria or Yitzira, because the whole purpose is Dira Batachteinim, in a very physical and lowly place, which ain't Tacht Lematayimeno, a world which is nothing low in this world. This is it. This is where we are here, and we need not to explain, right? We don't need to explain this. Why this is a lowly world. But together with that, when Chassidus comes and says that this is the ultimate purpose, it's not negating everything what it said was suggested for the reason why Hashem created the world. And if one of the suggestions is begin the Yishtameidin, that creation or the created beings should know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which that would not exist if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would never leave himself, Kaviyachal, so to say, if everything would have been the Ein Sof, there wouldn't be any created being which would know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the reason when Hashem, so to say, was mitzamtzim, the tzimtzum marish, and the original concealment, the original contraction, which ultimately led to the phenomenon of creation, maybe Atzilus, Bri, Yitzira, and so on. And that's the only way there could be a created being which would know him. And that was one of the suggestive reasons, even though it's not the ultimate reason, but it's nonetheless, this is one of the reasons that Hashem created this world and created everything, created beings, created entities and beings in order they should know him. So therefore, because this Abba, getting back to the message of here, because this Abba is not a gift bestowed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu via Eilam Atzilu, for again, a energy of Eilam Atzilus as a gift to the Yid, which expresses himself at Abba B'Tanugim, in this very special, unique, pleasurable love. But this is a love which is built based on my meditation, on my knowledge, investing and pondering with my Chachma Bina Das, my understanding, my wisdom, understanding, and my knowledge. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that ignites that fire, Kiddush B'Yesh, that fiery love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So because it's based on my knowledge, my meditation, my pondering, so then there as well lies, in other words, therein lies as well the advantage or virtue of this begin the Yishtamedunlei, of this, or rather this Ava Kiddush B'Yesh, this love, and this passionate love, because it's based on my understanding and appreciation, my perceiving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is one of the reasons HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, while the Ava B'Tanugim is a gift that comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, comes from Atzilus, is without an investment of my appreciation, of my knowledge, my understanding, my perception of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, this is another reason why we shouldn't just cancel and put away, and despite the information Al Rebbe just shared with us, that these two Avas could be expressed also in a way of Ava B'Tanugim, which this is the climactic love of Yid could ever express to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nonetheless, it doesn't mean that we just put away the other experience. No, there's a virtue of the other experience. Number one, because it soothes, it calms those tumultuous, stormy waters which comes our way in our Avodas Hashem. And additional to that, because it's predicated on our knowledge, on appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu intellectually, and this is one of the reasons why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world as Lashon in Ra'im Mehem D'Yishtameidin, like people should know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so therefore it's another reason why we can't cancel this, and therefore we celebrate it. In other words, we continue together with the Ava B'Tanugim, we continue in the investment in this pondering in the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, meditating time and again, in order to maintain that Ava Kiddush B'Yesh, that fiery love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the two advantages which the Alter Rebbe speaks and again concludes this 44th chapter. Accordingly, have a wonderful night.